This conference will now be recorded.
So first we'll start with the future methods. We have to understand what exactly the future method, what is the use, why should we go for future methods in Salesforce, what is the benefit, and what kind of exceptions will be getting arised upon executing the DML statements on few objects, and how can we avoid those exceptions with the help of future methods. Especially in the interview point of view, there is a common question. What do you mean by the exception mixed DML operation? Okay. Mixed DML operation exception. What exactly the mixed DML operation exception, when it will get arised, how to resolve those kind of exceptions. Okay. So we'll see practically today with the help of future methods. And in future methods, we are having some limitations, we are having some benefits are also there. And to overcome the limitations of that future methods, we have one enhanced facility, we have an advanced feature that is called as queuable interface. Queuable Apex or queuable interface is an enhancement for future methods. Okay, it's an extension for the future method. Whatever the problems are available in the future method, all those problems we can avoid, we can overcome with the help of queuable interface. Okay, we'll see what exactly the future method first, and then what kind of problems or exceptions we can resolve, how to use these future methods, we'll see practically. Okay. For example, assume that I have my Salesforce server, I have the client. Okay, I have my client. This is my client organization. This is the Salesforce server. We have a client in the server. Client is always initiating the request, and those requests are going to be processing by the server. Immediately, it will be sending the response back. Okay, immediately it will be sending the response back to the client, so that we can able to represent the data in the client side. That means we can make a request to that server. Server will be receiving the request. It will start processing the request to perform the operations, and the result will be sending back to the client. So this is the process will be happening as part of client server architecture. So that clients are always initiating the request, and server is like as a listener, always it is waiting to receive the request from the clients. Whenever the server is receiving some request from the client, it will receive that request, start processing that request, sending the response back to the client. Based on the client IP address, it will be sending the response back. So now in this case today, I'm going to be executing a small method. Whenever I'm invoking that method, then what will happen? Now let's see. For example, I'm preparing a small class. Public class, I'm indicating show record or else accounts manager. I'm creating a class with the name accounts manager. Inside this class, I'm preparing a method. I'm preparing a method, okay, with the name get all. In that one, I have written some business logic. For example, I've written some SQL query inside this, okay, the class, inside the method. I'm having my class and I'm having my method. Now tell me, how can we invoke this method now? Is it a static method or normal method? How we invoke the static method? Class name that method, right? Now I'm invoking this method. My class name is accounts manager dot get all the class. Now, as soon as whenever I'm going to be executing this piece of code, a request will be sending to the Salesforce server. Okay, whenever I'm going to be executing this piece of code, a request will be sending to that Salesforce server. It will send a request to that Salesforce server. If the Salesforce server is available, Salesforce server is idle right now. It is not busy. It is not down. Server is up and running fine. If the Salesforce server is available right now, then immediately it will take this request, it will start processing that request, it will be sending the response back. Okay, it will be sending the response back. Okay, so whenever we are invoking that request, okay, it may be method call, it may be button click, it may be anything, whatever you can perform. Upon click on that execute button to invoke this particular method, which is available inside my custom class, the request will be sending to that Salesforce server. If the Salesforce server is idle, if the Salesforce server is available, it will receive your request, it will start processing that, it will execute that request, it will collect the data from the account object based on the SQL query which you have prepared. It will be sending those records back to the client so that we can represent the records on our debug log, or we can represent inside the Visual Force page also wherever you want. Okay, that means if the server is available, it is sending the response back. For example, whenever I'm going to making this request, server is down, server is busy with some other processing, what will happen? Then batch classes are executing in Apex queue, not the normal classes. Whenever I'm making the request to that server, it is a normal class. It is a normal class. It's not a batch class, so it can't place inside that queue. Whenever it is going to be, I'm making the request, and the server is busy with some other request processing. The server is in maintenance state, then immediately your request will be getting discarded automatically. That means Salesforce can't perform your request. It can't take up your request because Salesforce server is in maintenance stage. It may be down. It may be busy with some other processing, so that your request cannot be get processed. Simply it is giving the response back to you, no response from server. It will try to connect, okay, it will try to connect to the server, but server is busy, server is not, okay, server is not idle right now. It is busy with some other records processing, so that it is indicating that message to you, no response from server. That means Salesforce server is not able to receive your request, so I can't get the response. Now, in this case, what happened? Whenever I'm going to be invoking this method, okay, upon invoking this method, if the Salesforce server is available, then let them process the records, okay, let them process the request. Suppose if the Salesforce server is busy right now, then please don't discard the request, okay, place this request inside the queue. Whenever Salesforce resources becomes available, then execute it, then send the response back to you. Okay, that means what? I don't have any urgency right now. Please take your own time. Whenever Salesforce resources becomes available, then execute that particular request and then send the response back to me. I will wait till that time, no problem. That means what here in this case? So now whenever I'm going to be executing some method, I want to inform to the Salesforce server, please don't execute it right now. If you are available right now, take it ahead and then start executing that, send the response back to me immediately. Suppose if you are not able to take my request right now, then don't discard the request. Please collect this request, place inside the queue, and then whenever your becomes available, whenever resources are available, then execute my request, send the response back to me. That means what future also you can execute. That means not only right now, execute in future, whenever you are available. It may be after 5 minutes, after 10 minutes, after 1 hour, after 1 day also. No problem, I will wait. So in this case, what happened here? We are going to be informed to the Salesforce server, no need to execute this method right away itself. Okay, please execute in future also. Future means what? After some time. After 2 minutes, after 5 minutes, after 1 hour, after 1 day, whenever Salesforce resources becomes available. In order to execute this method, whatever the resources are required, once all the resources becomes available, then execute my request and send the response back to me. Okay, so that I will take up that request as well. So in this case, whenever if you want to execute the method by placing inside that Salesforce queue, then we have to define this method as future method. Okay, future method. That means what? I'm not executing the method right away. I'm executing the method, okay, in future. That means based on availability of Salesforce resources. When Salesforce resources becomes available, I don't know. Maybe server may be busy. Okay, maybe server may be busy. Okay, maybe server is in down stage. Maybe server is in maintenance stage. So at that time, some resources may not be available. So at that time, okay, please consider my request, place inside the queue. Whenever resources becomes available, start processing the request in the response queue. Okay. So in this case, whenever if you want to execute the method by placing inside that Salesforce queue, not the entire class, only that particular method I would like to place inside the queue. So that here I would like to have a queue inside that Salesforce side. Okay. I would like to have a queue inside the Salesforce side. Whatever the request I'm going to be initiating, please place this request inside the queue. Whenever Salesforce resources becomes available, take this request, start processing that, and then send the response back to me. So now in this case, I want to execute this class. I want to execute this method by placing inside that Salesforce queue. At that time, we can go with the help of future method. Okay, we can go with the help of a method called as future method. Then how can we inform the Salesforce? This is the method. Okay, please place inside the queue and then execute it. For that one, we have to define that method with the help of an annotation called as @future. Whenever you are defining that method with the name annotation called as @future, that means what? This method will not be executing right away. This method is going to be executing by placing inside the Salesforce queue. Okay, whenever Salesforce resources becomes available, then this method will be executing, to be sending response back. That means what? This will be executing where? Outside of my organization, not within my organization, outside of my organization, because it is placing this method inside that Salesforce queue. If it is executing something by placing inside the Salesforce queue, means what? Salesforce queue is not specific to my organization. Salesforce queue is common to all the organization, irrespective of the using servers. So that it is common to all, so that outside of my organization, there is a Salesforce queue is available. In the queue, my request will be getting placed, from there to start executing, so that future methods are always executing outside of your organization. Okay, not from within your organization. Why? Because if the Salesforce queue is going to be placing within your organization, till the execution of this method, you can't do any other operation inside your Salesforce account. You can't access any user interface also. You can't click on any button. You can't click on any login application. You can't perform any other operations. So that here is always executing outside of your organization. So whenever if you are performing some long running operations, then we can go with that future methods. Okay, then you can go with that future methods. Okay, clear? Now, let me explain one more scenario. Understood the concept here? For example, I'm having two objects. I'm having an object with the name some account. So this is the ID of the record, name of the record, rating value, and the industry. So this is the account object inside my organization. And this account object is having some columns. ID column, name column, rating, industry. These are the columns. Now, this table is available inside my application, that is Salesforce. So here is my Salesforce application. Now, so now I'm having one more object is available with a similar structure. Okay, with a similar structure. Okay, with a similar structure, which is available inside an SAP system. So here is an SAP application. Okay, SAP application. I have two applications. One is SAP, second one is Salesforce. It may be SQL also, Java also, .NET, whatever, anything. I'm not bothered about it. It's a third-party application that I have. Now, as soon as whenever I'm creating a new record, okay, as soon as whenever I'm creating a new record, for example, I'm creating a record inside my Salesforce account table. So which is having the ID value from 001 to 34. Name is some account one. Rating value some heart. Industry some finance. Whenever I'm going to be creating a new record inside my account object with some details, then the same record has to be get created into my SAP applications account table also. I'm using two applications as part of my business. One is SAP, second one is Salesforce. For CRM, we are using Salesforce for the remaining modules like as for HR, for finance, and for the production planning and material management, okay, financial control. We are using some SAP. That means here CRM functionality we are accessing from Salesforce. Remaining modules, okay, remaining functional modules like as SD, or it may be like as FICO, it may be MM, it may be PP, it may be HR, whatever we are accessing from SAP. Because SAP is purely a ERP application which is having almost more than 24 modules inbuilt. Okay. So in this case, we are going to be using that as part of my business. We are having all these divisions. We are having a manufacturing organization. So we are having that one separate division called as material management. We are having a separate division called as production planning. We are having sales and distribution module. We are having that separate like as on financial control. Like that, we are having that so many divisions are available to manage this, all these divisions. Salesforce may not be sufficient because we don't have all those modules inbuilt. Okay, so that here I'm using some of the modules from SAP, some of the modules from Salesforce. Okay, now in this case, as soon as whenever I'm creating a record inside my account table, inside that Salesforce application, now this record has to be get creating into my contact account record of account object of SAP also. How can we do this one, Chandra? How can we do this? One is Salesforce, second one is SAP. Integration, right? Okay. Through integration, we can able to achieve this functionality. We can have the integration. Suppose if it is Salesforce to Salesforce, there is a possibility. Okay. If it is Salesforce to Salesforce, there is a possibility to synchronize the data here by using without coding format. As part of integration, we'll see. Okay, we'll see both the type of integration: declarative, programmatic. Both we'll see. That means without writing the code, we can integrate from Salesforce to Salesforce only. Okay. If those are two different applications, like as one is Salesforce, second one is third party, like as other programming, it won't support. At that time, we can't go with that non-coding. At that time, we have to use some integration tools, like as MuleSoft, Jitterbit, Microsoft Vista, CBeyond, Informatica Cloud. Okay, like that, we can use some integration tools, but we don't want to use that tools. Okay, through programming, we can do the integration. But there is a possibility. We are having some separate APIs are available in Salesforce. Now, in this case, I would like to have the integration where I would like to write some business logic to synchronize the data from account to table of Salesforce to account to table of SAP. Now, for that one, we are writing that integration piece of code. For example, I'm writing some business logic here. We are writing some business logic through integration. So I'm implementing this feature. Now, I would like to use that integration feature. I would like to use the integration feature. Through this integration, I would like to make both the organizations can communicate with each other. So that here, I would like to integrate these two applications. Whenever the record has been created, it has to collect the data. Through integration, it has to connect to that SAP application. It has to insert the record inside my object. Once the record has been getting inserted, it has to get the response back. Okay, it has to get the response back, and then that status information has to be synchronizing into my account object of Salesforce. That means I would like to have bidirectional communication. Okay, bidirectional communication between these two applications. So in this case, I have created one account record. So once the record has been getting created, to connect to that SAP application, to insert this record into that SAP application account table also, whatever the business logic is required, that I have written that business logic. Now, whenever I'm creating that record, okay, okay, now I'm invoking that method. Okay, I'm invoking that method. Okay, I'm invoking the method with the help of a process builder. I have a process builder on top of my account object. I have a process builder. I have a process builder on top of my object here. As soon as whenever I'm creating a new record inside my object, my process builder will be getting filed, and then this process builder is going to be invoking this integration process, which will be invoking one method, okay, which will be invoking a method. That method is going to be synchronizing the data from Salesforce to SAP. Okay, so that here I'm writing some business logic. Okay, I'm writing some business logic. I'm writing some business logic. So there is a business logic method which I have prepared. Now, as soon as whenever I'm creating the record, the process builder will be getting invoked. It is going to be invoking my business logic class method, okay, which is invoking a business logic class method. Now, my business logic class is going to be inserting the record, okay, inside that SAP applications account table also automatically. Okay, it is inserting the record inside this. Okay, now in this case, now I think you know that concept. Whenever I'm going to be creating the record, process builders will be getting involved. You know how to configure process builder also, you know that concept. Through process builder, can we invoke any business logic class? Can we invoke any Apex class? Yes. There is an action called as trigger Apex. Okay, trigger Apex. So whenever that process builder has been invoked, we can able to invoke that class also. There is a possibilities available. We can invoke some methods also with the help of process builder. So now for that one, I have written one business logic class. In that business logic class, I have written some piece of code to integrate with the third-party application to connect to the SAP system and to insert this record into my SAP systems account table. So I have written that business logic. So as soon as whenever my account record has been getting created, immediately process builder will invoke. It will be invoking the respective business logic method. Business logic method is going to be connecting to the SAP system. It is inserting the record inside this table. It will be getting the response back. For example, come to a scenario. Now I have created an account record. Immediately process builder has been invoked. It is invoking that method. Now method is connecting to the SAP system, but currently SAP system is in down stage. SAP system is down. Then what will happen in this case? Will it be able to process your request now? No. Then automatically your request will be getting discarded. That means you're unable to connect to the target endpoint. It will be giving some exception to you, unable to connect to the target endpoint. Endpoint means what? The target system. Target system's URL is called as endpoint. So it is unable to connect to the target endpoint because endpoint system is in down stage. It is in down. Server is down. SAP system is down. Our SAP system is in maintenance stage. Our SAP system is busy with some other processing, so it can't take up my request right now to synchronize the data from Salesforce to SAP. In this case, your operation will be getting discarded immediately. Then, in this case, once the operation has been getting discarded here, your record also will be getting cancelled from your Salesforce application. But in this case, what I want to do, I don't want to cancel my record. Here I have created one new customer record right now. So now synchronizing the data from Salesforce to SAP, take it more time also. Okay, it may be executing whenever based on the Salesforce SAP system availability. So I would like to continue with the Salesforce application. Synchronizing the data will take care later on also. No problem for me. And I don't want to synchronize the data immediate basis. Okay, it may be taking some time also, no problem for me, but don't discard my request. Now, as soon as whenever I'm creating the record, then please invoke the process builder, invoke this method, and then don't discard the method if the server is in busy state. If the SAP system is busy, then don't discard my request. Please place this method inside the queue. Whenever this SAP system is up, then please invoke that operation and then execute that method, insert the record, send the response back. So in this meantime, I will continue with creating that some more records also inside my Salesforce application. That means what? Whenever we are going to be using the integration features also, upon connecting to the third-party system, if the third-party system may be available, third-party system may not be available. That may be busy, that may be down also. In some cases, at that time here, okay, at that time, please don't discard the request. Please place this request inside the queue. Whenever the target system is up, then please execute the method and then send the response back to me. So in this case, whenever we are performing this kind of integration operations also, we are using future methods. Okay. Future methods will be very, very useful whenever we are performing the long running operations, because these are not executing within my organization, so that it won't impact on my organization, it won't impact on my work. I can continue with my work as it is, it will be executing outside of the organization. That is one benefit. Second one, we can use the future methods whenever we are using integrations. Upon connecting to the third-party system, it may take some time also, because third-party system may be having so many authorization servers in the middle. Like for example, when you go to some third-party systems, you may be having some authorization servers also in the middle. Like for example, when you go to some third-party systems, you will be having that. Okay, when you go to that Salesforce to Salesforce integration through programming, you will be having this much of involvement, this much of processes available here. So in this case, you will be having the client, you will be having the server. In between that, you will be having authorization server also available. Directly, we can't connect to that server directly. It will be having some authorization servers. In order to protect the protected resources, this is the web service which we have, which I would like to invoke. Directly, I can't connect to that. When you go to some other processes, you will be having some more complex mechanisms will be available to you. Let me explain that. When you go to some functionalities, you will be having some more complex functionalities. Okay, you will be having some multiple requests also available here between that service consumer and then service provider. That means the client and the server. Multiple requests throughout the process. Okay, just to authenticate. Okay, just to authenticate and to authorize. If you are done with the authorization process, then only we can able to access that actual resource which is available inside that the server side. So at that time, you will be having some authorization servers may be getting involved. So at that time, whenever if you want to access that actual resource which is available inside that server, so now it will be taking more time. To connect to the authorization server, to get the access token, it will be taking some time. Based on that access token, we can make a request to the actual resource and we can access that resource. Directly, we can't connect to some protected resources because these applications are running behind the firewalls. So that here, first of all, we need some authorization properly. That authorization has been done, then only we can able to invoke the actual request, and then only we can get the response back from that actual server. So we will be having some lot of process will be getting involved whenever we are using some the authenticated servers. Okay, like as banking systems, or it may be like as for example, whenever we are having some financial organization, pharmaceutical organization, manufacturing. At that time, the data will be very, very confidential, very, very sensitive. At that time, they will be having so many authorization servers will be getting involved in the middle of the integration process. So directly, we can't connect from the client to the server. You will be having some authorization server first. First of all, we have to get authorized, get that respective token, that is permission. With that permission, we can able to make a request to the actual server and we can get the response back. In this case, to perform all these things will take some time. Till that time, what I can do? Do I need to wait inside the organization? No, I can't wait. So now I would like to continue with my operations as it is. Then please let's perform all this stuff in the backend here. So for that one here, I would like to define that method as, I would like to define that method as a future method. So please don't execute right now here. Place inside that queue. From the start performing all the operation. Take your own time, whatever the time that you want. Once the operation has been done, then get the response back. In this meantime, I will continue with my other operations also. I can't wait. Okay. So in this case, whenever if you're performing this kind of integrations, whenever you're performing some long-running operations at that time, we can define those methods as future. That means future methods are not executing right away. Future methods are going to be executing based on the availability of Salesforce resources by placing inside that Salesforce queue that is called as Apex queue. Okay. So that future methods are not executing within my organization, these are always executing outside of my organization by placing inside that Salesforce queue. Okay, clear? Understood the concept here? Now, it's a common question in every interview, difference between future methods and queuable interface. It's a common question. Okay, now, so now next one. Let me explain one more point. Whenever you are performing some operations on some objects in Salesforce, okay, whenever you are performing the DML operations on some Salesforce objects, it will be raising an exception called as mixed DML operation exception. Mixed DML operation exception. Okay, mixed DML operation exception. Then whenever if you want to resolve this kind of mixed DML operation exception also, we have to use a method called as future methods. With the help of future methods, we can avoid the mixed DML operation exceptions also. Then what exactly the mixed DML operation exception, when it will get arise, how to resolve, okay, how to solve these problems, we'll see practically now with the help of future methods. Okay, clear? Understood the concept? Future methods are especially used to perform long-running operations. And whenever we're integrating with the third-party systems, also we can use future methods. Because to connect to the third-party system, it might be taking more time because if the number of aggregation servers will be getting involved, at that time to connect to that server, it will be taking more time. So that I don't want to wait inside my organization. So I want to execute this process from the outside of my organization, so it will be taking care by its own. So for that reason, here we are going to be implementing those features as with future method. Next, third one. Whenever if you want to resolve the mixed DML operation exception, then we have to use future methods. Okay. Whenever if you want to perform this kind of three operations, we can go with that future methods. Okay. Clear? So now let's see in this case. Then how this mixed DML operation will be getting occurred. Now, let me explain this concept first. So as part of Salesforce CRM, we are having so many applications given by Salesforce by default. There are so many standard applications like sales, service, marketing, charter, content, communities. So many applications has been given by Salesforce. By using these applications, we can automate certain business processes inside my organization. We can automate my sales processes, service processes, marketing automation, everything we can do. So now upon managing this whole information, where this data will get resided? Whenever I'm going to storing my sales related data, service related data, campaigns data, where this data will get resided? Database. In database.com, how it is storing the data in the form of tables. What are those tables? Standard objects. Okay. We are having so many objects in Salesforce. Because account, contact, opportunity, lead, case, so many objects are. So whatever the objects that we have inside your Salesforce instance, okay, it may be standard, it may be custom both. These objects have been categorized into two types. Okay, whatever the objects are available inside the organization, including standard and custom, all the objects have been categorized into two types. The first one is setup objects. Second one, non-setup objects. First one, setup objects. Second one, non-setup objects. Then what do you mean by setup objects and what objects are comes under setup objects? What do you mean by non-setup objects and which are comes under non-setup object? Now let's see. So now especially setup objects are used to interact with the metadata. Metadata means what? The business functionalities. Okay, business functionalities. In order to interact with that metadata, we are using that setup objects like user creations, profiles creations, groups creations, object creations, field creations, record types creations, business process creations, field mappings, all these things, workflows, all these things. These are nothing but the business logics. In order to interact with these business logics or the metadata, we are using the setup objects. So the setup objects are nothing but the objects which can be operatable, which can be manageable by using setup area or builder area of Salesforce. By using the setup menu or by using the build menu, we can able to maintain this. Like whenever we are going to be creating the user record, are we creating that user table? Have we created the user table? No. So now we are creating the user record directly to manage the users inside that organization. We are configuring the profiles also, to set up some permissions, to grant some permissions, to revoke the permissions also. We are creating some public groups to make those set of people group together. We are creating some workflows. We are creating some custom objects. We are creating some custom workflow rules. We are creating some record types. We are creating some business processes. These all are comes under the metadata. Metadata means business logics, business functionalities of application. So whenever if you want to interact with these functionalities, we are using that set of objects. Okay. Now, so in this case here, in order to manage that user record, what is that object that we are using? To manage the user records, storing the user records and managing the user records. What is the object that we are using? To store all the user records. What is that object? What is that object name? User object. All the profiles will be storing where? Profile. And then all the public groups information will be storing inside that group object. Record types will be storing inside the record type object. Business processes will be storing inside that business process object. We are having that object like as field mapping object, and we are having custom object. This is the name of the object which will be storing all the custom objects which you have created. And then custom field. This is a custom object which is remaining the Salesforce, which is store all the custom fields information, all the information. That means what? The objects which we are managing with the help of builder area or setup area of Salesforce, those are comes under setup objects. Because those are comes under setup objects, which are especially used to interact with that metadata. Without writing the business functionalities by your own, without using through programming, we can able to interact with those metadata. So business functionalities with the help of these setup objects. We are not writing anything. We are not going to building all these things. This has been given by Salesforce by default. In order to interact with these business functionalities, we are using these objects. Okay. Now, so now in this case here, setup objects are nothing but only those objects which are used to interact with the metadata. Okay. To connect to the metadata, we are using that setup objects. Now, make a note of this one. Setup objects. Setup objects are used to interact with the Salesforce metadata. Okay, used to interact with the Salesforce metadata. Setup objects can be operatable by using setup area or builder area of Salesforce. Setup area or builder area of Salesforce. For example, user object, profile object, group object, record type object, business process, field mapping, custom object, custom field, workflow, territory. These all are concerned under the set of objects in Salesforce. Remaining all the standard. These are not only the standard objects. We have so many other standard objects are available in Salesforce. Remaining all the standard objects and custom objects are concerned under non-set of objects. Okay. Remaining all other standard and custom objects are comes under the non-set of objects. Non-set of objects. Setup objects are especially designed to interact with that metadata. Okay, to interact with the Salesforce metadata, we are using that setup objects, which can be manageable by using that setup area or builder area of Salesforce. And the remaining all standard and custom objects are comes under non-setup objects, like as account, campaign, lead, contact, opportunity, case, solution, order, contract, quote, product, price book, feedback. These are all our objects that comes under NAT setup domain. Now in this, so what are the objects available inside this organization? All these objects has been categorized into two types: setup and non-setup objects. Now the problem is, whenever if you are performing the DML operations on both setup objects and non-setup objects within a single transaction, Salesforce won't allow. Salesforce won't allow you to perform the DML operations on both setup objects and non-setup objects within a single transaction. When you try to perform the DML operations on both setup and non-setup objects within a transaction, Salesforce will raise an exception called as mixed DML operation exception. Okay. When you try to perform the DML operations on both setup object and non-setup object within a single transaction, Salesforce is going to be raising an exception called as mixed DML operation exception. Okay. Now make a note of this one. When the user tries to perform the DML operations on both setup and non-setup objects inside a single transaction, then Salesforce will raise is an exception called as mixed DML operation exception. It will raise an exception called as mixed DML operation exception. Today's session will go up to 1:30. Okay. Done? Now. So now let's see, will it be raising this exception really or not? Okay, let's try first. If it is giving this kind of exception, then how to solve it? Okay, how to resolve this exception with the help of future method, and how to prepare the future methods, what rules are available, we'll see practically, and what limitations and drawbacks are also there, we'll see. And then we'll see the extension of that future method, that is Q. So now in this case, so let me try to perform some DML operation. As we have discussed that when you try to perform the DML operations on both setup objects and non-setup objects within a single transaction, Salesforce will be raising an exception, mixed DML operation exception. It means it can't accept the DML operations on both setup and non-setup in one transaction. We have to make it segregated, get two separate transactions. But my requirement is only one. Within one transaction, I want to do. Within one go, I want to do all the both. So in this case, but Salesforce is not accepting. Let me try first, and then what will happen? We'll see how to resolve that problem by using future methods. So let me take some two objects. For example, I'm taking one object as setup, second one as setup. For example, I'm using that user object. Second one, I would like to go with that, the hiring manager. Now hiring manager object is comes under what? Setup or non-setup? Non-setup. Okay. So now this is non-setup object, and user is comes under setup. Okay. So I'm taking these two objects here. Now on these two objects, I want to perform DML operation. So let me try to perform some DML operations on both these object records in one transaction. Okay, let's see what will happen, how to resolve those problems also now. Let's see. Now, in this case, I would like to take the user object. In this user object, I would like to take one user record. I would like to deactivate through programmatic. That means I'm performing update operation. That means DML script. Because I can't delete the user record. You know that concept. Okay, once the user record has been created, we can't remove. So I want to try to delete the deactivated user through program. So now tell me, how can we deactivate the user through programming? Is active equals to false. That's it. That means what? To indicate whether the user is active or not, we are using a field called as is active, which is a checkbox field. If the user is in active status, it will be having the checkmark, or else it will be having unselected. I want to deactivate the user. Okay. So I want to use the DML statement in order to update that user record to make it as deactivated. Next one, I want to create a hiring manager record also. I want to insert a hiring manager. Insert means what? Again, DML statement. Okay. Insert again the DML statement. I want to perform the update operation on user, that is one DML statement. I want to insert a hiring manager, that is also one DML statement. So I want to perform the DML operation on both these object records in one go. So in this case here, within a single transaction, I want to do that, but Salesforce won't allow. Let's try first what will happen. Let's see, and how to solve the problem. We'll see. Okay. So let me take that a small class. Okay, let me prepare the method. In that method, I'm trying to be writing the piece of code in order to update a user record by deactivating that through programming. In the second one, I would like to insert a hiring manager record. Okay, understood the requirement here? I'm creating an Apex class. I'm indicating the CIS future methods helper. Simply future methods helper. Inside this class, I'm preparing a method. Public static void do DML operations. Okay. I'm preparing a method with the name do DML operation, which is going to be performing the DML operations on both object records. Now, in this case, I would like to write the code. I would like to deactivate the user. And then inside the same method, I would like to write some code to insert an hiring manager record. I would like to insert an hiring manager. That means what? I want to perform the DML operations on both the object records in one shot. That means here this is the user object, which is what? Setup object. This is what? Hiring manager. Non-setup object. I'm performing the DML operations on both these objects. Okay, within a single transaction. Within a single transaction, I want to perform the DML operations on. Now, let's take a user record. Let's try to deactivate one user, for example. So let me take a user record. I'm using this development user record here. Currently, the user is in active status right now. I want to take this user record based on this username. I want to deactivate. You know how to write that piece of code. Now tell me how can we do that? Okay, we need to query the record, right? Tell me how can we write that code? Okay, user Okay. Select ID of the user. Where username equals to the username which have come. That means what? I am collecting the user information. Okay, I am collecting the user information based on the username. So now based on this username, I am collecting the user record details, and along with the user record, I am collecting the ID value and the is active column also, because I want to deactivate this column. Now, so in this case here, I am adding that condition. Suppose for example, okay, suppose for example, upon collecting that user record, by that time user is already in deactivation. Do we need to deactivate the deactivated user again? No, it's a waste of resources. It's a waste of time. Okay, so for that one, what we get? Okay, then what we can do? What we can do? Can't we write that one inside the query itself?
Is not
And is active equals to true. That means what? I am fetching the user record based on the specific username which is in active status. If the user is already in deactivation, I don't want to get that user record here, so that I don't want to do any other operation. Okay. Now, if the user is in active status, then I would like to deactivate. So I'm verifying the condition. If user to deactivate that equals to, then what we can do? Is active equals to then over done or anything update. Okay, we have to write that update statement, because just I'm changing that value, but we need to commit that changes back to the database, right? So we have to use update statement. Update user to deactivate. Okay, so that means what? I am collecting one user record based on that username. So this is the username that we have, development user. I'm collecting the user record based on the username, and then I'm fetching that user which is in active status. If the user is already in deactivation, I don't want that user. I want to get only that user which is in active status. Now, if the user is in active status, if the user record is available, that means if this is not null, then only I'm going to be deactivating the user by assigning that is active field value as false. And then I'm committing the changes back to the database, so that user will be getting deactivated. Okay. Next, how to insert a hiring manager record right now? Creating the object of hiring manager. Can creating the object. Hiring manager underscore C, some HR record, new hiring. I'm saving this code up to now, so that I can get the intelligence switcher. HR record dot name. Like a sample test HR. HR record dot location. I'm indicating something. HR record dot contact number. HR record dot email ID. Now, test HR at the rate some Gmail. Do we have any PAN number field? No, right? No, I'm inserting that HR. Now tell me in this code any mistake, any syntactical mistakes, any problems? No, right? Now the code is correct. Okay. So we have written the code. Okay, there is no issues in the code. Just we have created that one hiring manager record by assigning the values for all the mandatory fields. These are the fields are available. I don't have any other fields in my hiring manager object. These are the fields. I have assigned the values for all the fields, and I'm deactivating one user record also. In this one, business logic wise, functionality wise, no change, and then no errors. Code is correct. But let's try to execute, observe what will happen in this case. I'm calling this method. I'm going to the execute anonymous window. I'm calling this method. What is that method name? Do DML operations. I'm getting that. I'm having the method with the name do DML operations. So let's try to execute this method now. So let's try to execute this method. Click on execute. What happened in this case? It is raising an exception. Now tell me any logic wise any problem in the code? Syntactical wise any problem? No. Okay, logic is also correct and then syntax is also correct. No issues. But even though Salesforce won't allow you to perform the DML operations on both setup and non-setup objects in Salesforce. Now it is indicated clearly system.dml exception insertion field. First exception is on row 0. First exception, first error is mixed DML operation exception. DML operations on setup object is not permitted until you have updated a non-setup. Okay. Then you can raise the question, sir, why can't we make it reverse? Non-setup and setup. Here they're indicating that are vice versa, so it won't be applicable. Okay. It won't be applicable here. So now where you can't perform the DML operations on these objects here, it will be cancelling the whole transaction as it is. Okay. So even though, okay, if I'm writing the correct code, okay, without any, okay, wrong logic, okay, without any syntaxes, errors, your code will not be able to execute because here when coming to the Salesforce, they have segregated these objects into the two categories, setup and non-setup. Some objects are we are utilizing in order to interact with the metadata. Some objects we are interacting through the tables directly. So in this case, when you try to perform the DML operations on both setup objects and non-setup objects within a single transaction, Salesforce not allowed. Then how can we solve this problem? In this case, we can solve this problem with the help of a feature called as future. Future. Now tell me how can we do this? Where is the reason? This one? No. So now in this case, it has executed that operations here. Let's see. Go to the user record. User has deactivated here. No. Next. Hiring manager. User the record has created here with the name sample test HR, starting with that character yes. Do we have the record? No. Why? Future. Okay. Then where it will be get the size? Actually, future is when you can verify tomorrow. Then where we can see what all the things are there inside the queue. Now go to that. Okay. Jobs. Apex jobs. Now what happened? Again, same issue. Mixed DML operation exception inside the future method. Yeah. So in this case, that means what? That what I told you, you can't perform DML operation on both setup and non-setup within a single transaction. Now by making it as future, what we are doing? Okay, we are executing that method from outside of the organization. That means here from that Salesforce queue. They are also doing the same thing, right? They are also executing both within a single transaction. In this case, it should not be allowed. But that one, what needs to be done? Whatever the things, but whatever the functionality you are going to execute, okay? Whatever the functionality you are going to execute, don't execute this entire business logic within a single transaction. Split them to the two transactions. Okay, split them to the two transactions. Now you can raise a question. Sir, do I need to write two separate methods for this one? Yes, we need to. If you are writing two separate methods, then how can we call these two methods? Two methods separately. This is the first method separate transaction, second method separate transaction. But I don't want to do two separate operations again. Of course, I want to split the code to the two separate methods, but I want to execute within one transaction itself. In this case, what I want to do, one method I want to execute within my organization, second one I want to execute outside of my organization. Okay, I will call only once. I will call only once. Both will be executed, but both are not running within the organization. One is executing in my organization, second one is executing the outside of the organization. That's how we are going to be segregating the two. Okay, so for that reason, I don't want to write this both code inside the single transaction. I am going to be copying this code. I want to place inside one more additional method. I'm preparing one more method here. Public static void create. Here I'm placing this one. Okay, here I'm placing this one. I'm preparing one more method here with the name create HR record. Now HR record creation process I'm writing inside is separate method, and then this method also I'm going to write it separate. Now we can raise a question. So if I'm writing two separate methods, then what is the concept of this future methods in this? This is method is separate, this method is separate. But in this case, if I'm calling this method separately, okay, for example, I'm calling this method separately. This is the method I'm calling separately. And then future methods helper dot one more. What is that? Create HR. So now here in this case, what happened? We have to invoke this method separately. Click on execute button, and then you have to select this one. We have to execute. Nothing but 2 times you have to execute, because we maintain 2 separate transactions. Okay. Suppose if I'm selecting both, okay, if I'm executing execute, it will be raising the exception again. Simple. Because both the methods are considering within a single transaction itself. That means they are going for in one go. Okay. So now they are both are going in one go itself. So in this case, it will be raising that exception. Now in this case, I don't want to call into. I want to call only one, but I want to allow both. In this case, I want to execute this particular method. Okay, I want to execute this particular method within my organization, and this method I want to execute outside. For that one, we have to use future. Then how I would like to call, once this method has been executed, immediately I would like to call that second method also. After this method. That means what? I'm linking. Okay, I'm linking. So now whenever I'm going to be invoking this method, okay, this method will be getting performed. Immediately it will be calling the second method. That means within a single transaction also both the methods will be executed. But in this case, what happened? This method code will be executing within your organization. This method will be executing by placing inside your Salesforce queue. Transaction is only one, but both are segregating. One will be executing within my organization, second will be executing outside of my organization by making it as future. Okay, clear? Observe the concept in this case. Suppose if I'm calling both the methods separately by 2 times execute button, then no concept of future methods. Okay, there's no concept of future methods. There's no concept of mixed daemon operation exception also. I want to execute both the operations in one go, in one transaction. Okay, when I click on one single button control, I want to call both the methods, but I don't want to raise that exception. For that reason here, I'm executing some part of the code I'm executing within my organization over here. And the second method also will be getting executing the same transaction, but that will not be executing within my organization. That will be executing future by placing inside that of execute. Okay, clear? Any questions? I have observed some blank faces too.
There is relationship. There is relationship.
If there is a no, it won't allow. Relationship so and so it won't allow. We can pass that primitive. We'll see the limitations. I will tell you the concept. Okay. It won't supposed to pass this values. We can't supply. We can pass only some primitive type of elements, not a subject type. But there is a possibility. There is an alternative way I will show you practically. Understood the concept here? Now, so now by using the future method here, what I want to do is I want to execute. That means I'm executing only one transaction. I'm not clicking on the execute button 2 times. I'm going with one go only. I'm going with that one go, and then in that one go, I'm going to be initiating this method. Whenever I'm executing this method, this is the normal method which will be executing this piece of code, okay, within the same transaction within my organization. But once this code has been executed, it is going to be executing the second method that is called as create HR record. But this method also will be executing in the same transaction. But this method is not a normal method. This method is a future method. So directly it is pushing this method into the queue, so that it will be executing by placing inside the Salesforce queue. So that will be executing outside of the organization. So that both operations will be getting done parallel. Instead of executing within the organization, we can executing both by segregating them to the 2 separate places. Okay, transaction is only one, but the execution will be in 2 different places. Parallel executions we can do. Okay, clear? Now, so now in this case here, now let me perform this operation right away. Let me execute this. I'm saving this class code. I'm invoking this method. Click on execute. Any error now? No. Request has been sent to the server. It is processing the request. Go to that user records. Let's see. User has been deactivated. Yes. Okay. That means first operation has been done. Let's see the second operation. Hiring managers. Sample test HR record has been created. That means what? How many times I click on that execute button? Transaction is only one. But one part of the code is executing within my organization. Next part will be executing inside the Salesforce queue. Then if it is executing the Salesforce queue, definitely the queue will be allocating some ID, right? We can track that information from the jobs, right? Yes. Let me verify that. Let's go to that setup menu where we can verify jobs. Now it is indicating in the future method which has been completed. That means execution process is done. Number of batches are 0 and the failures are 0 here. Now this is the ID has been allocated by Salesforce. This is the method which is executing inside that queue, and this is the class from which the method is associated. The whole information will be tracking by Salesforce in turn. Okay. That means what? By making that method as a future, we can push that method into that Apex queue, and from there we can start executing outside of your organization. So you can place that method inside the queue, even though it may be having some large records processing, even though it may be a time-consuming process also, even though it may be like some long-running operations, it will be executing inside the backend process, so that in this meantime you can continue with your work inside your organization. It won't impact you, because here that will be executing in the background process, that will be executing outside of your organization, so that it will not be impacting on your work. Okay, so this is how we are implementing the future methods inside your Salesforce instance. Okay, so in this case, whenever I'm going to be using the future method, okay, some limitations are there. Let me explain those limitations. Okay, let me explain the limitations. When coming to the future methods, rules. The first one. Generally, if you want to execute any method by placing inside that Apex queue, okay, outside of the organization, we have to define the method with what data type, what access specified. Global. So now what is my method right now here? Even though it is accessible from outside because of future annotation. So this is the annotation we have indicated at the rate future. Okay, at the rate future. Okay. Suppose here through this future method inside this one, if you are writing any integration code, okay, if you are writing any integration code, at that time we have to indicate that through this method I would like to invoke the integration process also. For that one we have to use the parameter called as callout equals to true. If you are writing some integration code inside that future method, we have to use one parameter called as callout equals to true. That means this the future method is having the capability to invoke the third-party web services also. Okay. For that reason, we have to define that future method with callout. Okay. Right now, it is not required for us. Just we are going to making it as a future method. Okay, because we are not invoking any third-party integrations, so that here I'm taking it as a normal future method, right? Now, in this case, whenever we are defining the future method should be always static. The future method should be always defined with static. It's a fundamental principle of it. This is the first rule. Future method should be always defined with static. Future method should be always defined with static. It's not a normal method, it's a static method. Next. Future method doesn't return any value to the calling environment. Hence, what is the return type then? Void, right? Hence, the future method, the return type should be always void. This is the second principle. Second rule we have to follow upon using the future method. Upon using the future method, the second rule is future method should be always void. Now, third, future method should be always defined with the help of an annotation. What is that annotation? It's a future, right? Future method should be always defined with an annotation that is at the rate future. On the top of the method, we have to use that annotation at the rate future. Next, the fourth principle. Can I pass any parameters to my future method? Yes, there is a possibility. We can pass some parameters also to the future, but here there are some limitations out there. Whenever I'm passing the parameters to the future method will be accepting only primitive type of parameters, arrays of primitives, collection of primitives, not a subject, not affix type, not user defined types. Okay. So now the future method will be accepting only those parameters of type, primitive type. That means primitive types in the sense what? Integer, double, string, this kind of things, not a subject type. A subject type of parameters will not be supported. Okay, a subject type of parameters will not be supported by the future method. Future method will not be supporting to supply the subject type of parameters. Okay, now, so in this case, future method will be supporting to supply only the primitive type of parameters and then arrays of primitive and then collection of primitives also. Like for example, for this future method, I'm supplying the parameters here. Integer, customer code, string, customer name. I'm passing. Okay, so I'm saving this one. Now my method will be saving as it is here without any exceptions, without any errors. Now, so when coming to the future method will be accepting the primitive type of parameters also. Suppose if you want to pass arrays of primitive, I'm indicating like a string array. Okay, string array, country codes. Okay, country codes. I'm giving a string array. Arrays of parameters also will be primitive types will be getting supported. If you want to pass collection of primitives, you can supply. Okay, list of string. Like I was going to specify the account name. We can supply. That means what? When coming to that future method will be accepting the primitive type of parameters, arrays of primitives, okay, arrays of primitive types, because it is also primitive data type, collection of primitives. Suppose for example, I'm passing that account type, account some ACC. When you click on save, it won't accept that. It will be giving the compilation error to you that a subject type of parameters cannot be supported by future method. So that future method do not support parameter type of parameter. Yes, subject type of parameters cannot be supplied as an argument to the future. It's a fundamental rule. Okay, it's a fundamental rule. Now, there is a question in the entry point of view. I want to pass a subject type of parameter. I want to pass some account records. This is Siddha. Okay, but I'm having some collection of records. In each record, I'm having so many field values. I want to pass some collection of account records information from my to my future. In this case, instead of passing the complete account record, why can't we pass the IDs? Okay, list of IDs can be supplied. ID will be comes under which data type? ID. Primitive or a subject? Primitive. Primitive will be supporting or not here? Yes. So in this case, instead of passing the complete account record information, I would like to pass the list of IDs. Okay, list of IDs. ACC. Now, if the IDs are available, then can we get the records information? How? I'm having the record IDs. Through these IDs, how can we collect those account records information? General scenario. IDs are available. I'm having the IDs. Record IDs are there with me. With these IDs, what records are there? I want to get. How? SQL query, simple. Okay, we have to use that. List of account. LSB accounts equals to, we can fetch the information. Select the ID, name, rating, industry from account. Then in okay, ACC. Okay. So we are collecting that. That means what? Whenever I'm passing the subject type of parameter, it is not accepting the subject type of parameter. So instead of passing the complete record information, we can pass the record IDs. ID will be comes under primitive data type. I'm passing some list of record IDs, and then based on these IDs, we can able to write one additional SQL query inside the future method. We can get the records. Now here you can raise the question. So, for example, I want to pass account IDs, contact IDs, opportunity IDs, case IDs, lead IDs, everything. Then, in this case, once IDs are available to my method, do I need to write so many SQL queries, right, to get the data from those? For example, here I'm passing the account IDs here. These are the account IDs. List of ID, lead IDs. List of ID, list of ID, contact IDs. That means what? I want all these records inside the future method. In this case, what I'm doing, I'm going to passing all these IDs. Okay, I'm passing the account record IDs, lead IDs, case IDs, contact IDs. Once these IDs have been available to you, then we have to make an SQL query to get the data from those objects. Now, in this case, number of SQL queries are increasing or not here? Yes. So that Salesforce has given the extensibility for this future method. Future method is having the capability to write maximum of 200 SQL queries. Okay. Salesforce is indicating that in future method we can write maximum of 200 SQL. There is the extension capability is there for the future methods. Because why they have extended that? When coming the future method is not supporting the subject type, so that if you're passing a subject type, there's no need of writing any SQL query. Directly we can pass all the records in the form of collection. But now it is not accepting the records directly, it is accepting only IDs. So that we have to pass the IDs, and then we need to get the records information based on the IDs by making some additional SQL query, so that Salesforce has increased the number of SQL queries count in future method is 200. Okay, clear? Now, there is one functionality here. Now, sometimes, okay, in the entry point of view, they will raise a question. Sometimes I want to pass a subject type of parameter. They're raising a question, I want to pass a subject type of parameter. How to pass? We can say we can't pass a subject type of parameter, we can pass ID, we can get that record. He will say that I don't want to pass ID, I want to pass record ID only. Record. I want to pass a complete record itself. So in this case, there is an alternative mechanism is available. For example, I'm having a record. Account record. S is equals to new account. SEC dot name. I'm passing somewhere. SEC dot rating. I'm indicating like as SEC dot annual revenue. SEC dot industry. SEC dot type. SEC dot ownership. SEC dot active status. SEC dot home. SEC dot facts. Now I want to pass this complete account record to my future method. So there is an account record information is there. I want to pass this complete account record information to my future. But in this case, if I'm passing this complete account record information to the future method, then it won't accept. It is not accepting to pass a subject data. So what I want to do is, whatever the account record information is there, this entire account record information, I want to convert from account object to the string type. Okay, I'm converting from account type to string type. Okay, I want to convert this whole account record information from Apex type to string type with the help of JSON parser classes. Okay, by using JSON parser classes, we can able to convert it. Okay, now in this case, whenever I'm going to be converting the Apex type of elements into the string type, this process is called as deserialization. We are going to be using the two concepts called as serializing, deserializing. Serializing is nothing but what? Converting string type of element into your Apex types, your Salesforce objects types. This is called as serialization process. Deserialization means what here? We are going to be reversing it back. Now, in this case, how can we do? Now let's see. So now whatever the account record is available, I am going to be converting into the string type. Then how can we do that? Now let's see. For that one, we are using that system.json parser classes. JSON.deserialize. Look at JSON.serialize. Serialize. Which object you would like to serialize over here? I want to serialize the object. So now whenever I'm using this serialize method, observe this one. It will be indicating the syntax. Serialize. So it is going to be indicating that whenever I'm using this serialize method, what is the return type in this case? String. That means whatever the object that we have, whatever the object you're passing, that object will be converting into string type automatically by default by using the serialize method. So now it is going to be returning that value in the form of a string. String SEC record. Now it is what? String type or account type now? String type. Can I pass the string values to future methods? Yes, right. So that here I'm passing that string value. The string account record. Now here, whenever I'm going to be collecting this data, okay, whenever I'm going to be invoking, for example, here I'm removing this part. This is not required for me right now. Okay, now. So here I'm preparing that future method. In that one, I'm passing that string, okay, account record. So whatever the content, that means that I'm passing this CSS record to my, okay, the future method. So once this record has been, that means that once the string value has been coming into the future method, here I want to make this process reverse back. That means string to Apex type. For that one, we are using a method called as deserialization method. So that we have to use system.json.deserialize. Okay, deserialize. So we have to indicate which string you want to deserialize. This is the account string. Into what type you want to convert? You want to type into that account type, account dot class. So which is going to be converting into that account type as subject type. We have to convert into account type and then store inside the account variable. Account some places. Okay. So we can able to store it back. Now from here, once a record is available directly, we can use insert. That's it. We can use serialization, deserialization feature. With the help of serializing and deserializing, we can able to pass the subject type of parameters also to the future. It's a common question in every interview. Okay. So in this case, whenever we are going to be passing the parameters to the future method will not be accepting any subject type of parameters, but there is an alternative mechanism through which we can pass that subject type of parameters also to the future method with the help of serializing and deserializing features. So we have to use the help of JSON parser classes. We have to use that JSON class, and then as part of integration, we'll see what exactly JSON class, JSON generator class, JSON parser class, JSON creator class, everything we'll see practically. So in this case, as part of the JSON concept, we'll see. Now, by using this JSON parser classes, we can able to serialize the data from account type to string type. That means the process of converting your Apex type of records into the string type is called as serializing. And the deserialization is nothing but what? It's a reverse process of serialization. That means converting the string type of element into your actual account type. Like when you go to that, because whenever we are using the concept of modems, okay, for the internet access, the people are using modems. Because modulation, demodulation concept, that is nothing but modem. Okay, whatever the data is available, it is converting from digital to analog, analog to digital formats. Okay, now, so in this case, whenever if you want to pass the subject type of parameters to our future methods, we have to use the help of serialization concept and then deserialization by using that JSON class. Okay, so here we are having the ready-made methods are available, serialized method and then deserialized method. Okay, clear? Understood the concept? Now make a note of this one. Future method doesn't support, future method supports to pass only primitive type comma arrays of primitive and collection of primitive type of elements. Collection of primitive type of elements. Future method doesn't support to supply the S-object type of parameters. S-object type of parameters. In this case, here we are having two solutions. Let me use both the solutions over here. Solution. Instead of passing the record, passing the complete record, supply the record ID as a parameter. ID as a parameter. And then get the record details by using a SQL query based on the record ID. Now here I am giving that note. Future methods allows us to perform maximum of 200 SQL queries. Second solution. Convert the S-object record into string type by using serialization feature. That is system dot JSON dot serialize, and then pass a string to the future method. Inside the future method, deserialize the string data into back to a subject type by using deserialization. That is system dot JSON dot deserialize. Next, the sixth rule. This rule is called as it's called as like as a drawback. So the fifth rule is basically a drawback of future method. It won't support a subject type of parameters. Done? If I right click it.
To set up a path in our method.
Sorry,
To set up object in our method.
two set of objects,
To not set up.
but both you can include. Set up and not set up you cannot include. So same we can do.
Particularly
It's not the problem of multiple DMLs, it's the problem of objects.
There is difference between the setup and master user and direct manager.
Okay.
There is no use of future nodes.
Then in this case, what we can do? What we can do? There is a relation. Okay, because that record is creating by the user only. Then how to pass that user ID inside this?
So using the HR is parent and user is parent.
Okay, that's what. Then how can we do?
We can pass it parent ID to parent.
HR is the
Parent and user is parent.
how is user is
Sir, user
you will create that user record, HR record, user right. User is the parent. Okay, right.
So possible you can keep.
You can pass that HR record. You can pass that user record to that HR record also. There is a possibility. How? The same process. Whatever the user record is available over here, collect that user record ID. We can pass to the future method. That is one thing. Or else, if you want to pass the complete user record, you can serialize this user record into that string type by using that serialize method. Pass this complete user record, and then you can able to access inside. Okay. Even though the records may be associated, we can able to implement that. Next, the next functionality. For example, I have a class. I have a class. Okay. I have a class. Inside my class, I'm having two methods are available. Okay. I'm having two methods are there. Both are future methods. I'm having two future methods. Two future methods are available. This is one future method. This is the second future method. Inside a single class, you can have multiple future methods also. There is a possibility. Now, I want to call this method. For example, this method is okay, get all records, and then this method name is get all records one. For example, whatever. Now I'm indicating that get all records one. Okay, get all records. I want to call this method from this feature. So that here what I want to do, I would like to simply call this. I would like to call this method directly. As part of this business logic, I am going to be calling this method. But whenever I am going to be calling, that means what here I am making it as a chaining process. That means here whenever I am calling this a future method, this method will get executed the respective business logic, and whether it is calling that get all records one. Get all records one is what? Again, it is another future method. In this case, okay, now in this case, when coming to the future method, chaining process will not be applicable in future methods. Because this method will be going into the Apex queue. When it will execute, I don't know. Okay. When it will execute, I don't know. It may be after 5 minutes, after 10 minutes, after 1 day, after 1 week, I don't know. Suppose if this method is depending on another future method, when that method will execute, I don't know. Okay. So in this case, all this process will be in the pending status. For that reason, when coming to the Salesforce, one future method cannot be invocable from another future method. That means chaining process will not be applicable between the future methods in Salesforce. Okay, is the limitation. Okay, is the limitation. So now in this case, you can have multiple future methods also inside a single class, but one future method cannot be invocable from another future method, because if you are invoking the first future method like as get all records, it will go into the queue, and then it will be invoking the second one, but that will also going into the queue. When this method will execute, I don't know. This method also will, when it will execute, we don't know. Both will be going in that the infinite loops. So at that time here, we can't invoke that one future method from another one. Till the second one is not executed, first one can't finish. When the second one will execute, we don't. Okay, there is a dependency. Okay, so in this case, when coming to the Salesforce, they have eliminated this process that future methods cannot be applicable with the chaining process. Chaining process will not be applicable. For example, now come to a scenario. Assume that I'm having two batch classes. Can I apply the chaining process between the two batch classes? I have two batch classes, batch class 1, batch class 2. In batch class 1, I'm updating account record. In the batch class 2, I'm updating the contact record. Can you make the chaining process? That means after completion of the batch class 1, I want to invoke the batch class 2. How? I don't want to execute both. I want to execute the first one only. I will push that first job. Once the first job execution has been done, immediately it has to invoke the second. I will push only one. That will invoke the second one. Where? Where? In the first job, where? In the execute method, no. Finish method. Okay, finish method. So in the finish method of the first batch job class, we have to call that second batch job. Okay. Then automatically, once the first batch job execution has been done, then it is executing that second batch job. In the second batch job finish method, we can invoke third one. From there, fourth one. From there, fifth one. Like that, we can able to make it chaining process. Sometimes they will raise a question: if the first batch job has been successfully processed without any errors, then only I want to invoke second. Number of errors what? Equals to 0, right? That's it. That means if the number of failed batches are equals to 0, that means first batch job has been processed successfully, then only we can invoke that second batch. That's it. Simple concept. Okay. The questions are very, very small in the interview point of view. Okay. You should be able to answer all the questions. Okay. Now. So like the similar way, as part of your batch processing, we can able to allow that chaining process. One batch job can invoke the second batch job, second one can invoke the third one, and then fourth one. Like that, we can make it as a chaining process. But in Salesforce, as part of future methods, okay, we can't apply the chaining process. Okay. So now your future method cannot be called from another future. That is a problem that we have when coming to that. Okay, the future methods. Okay. Now, make a note here. Chaining process can't be applicable for future method. That is, one future method can't invoke another future method. One future method can't invoke another future method. Next one. Let me explain one more transaction. These points are very, very important in the entry pipeline. This is a definite question. Okay. At a time. Or else you have to push separately. Every future method you have to push separately. You have to push separately, no alternatives. The two, whenever I'm going to be pushing that the future method inside the queue to be get processed from outside of the organization, it won't give you any idea of that record. That means it won't give any idea of the batch job. That means there is no tracking mechanism through program. For example, I'm using that batch class. You know the concept of batch class already we have discussed. So whenever I'm going to be executing a batch class, now the batch class is going to be placing inside the queue. Whenever a batch job is placing inside the queue, queue will be allocating one ID. That ID will be returning back. Okay, it will be returning that ID to you. So whenever I'm using the database.execute batch method, okay, whenever I'm using database.execute batch method, now it is returning that ID here. That means here stream. That means ID of the record, ID of that batch job will be getting returns to you. Based on that ID, we can make a query from which object to get the status. to get the batch job status. Okay, what is that object you're using? Async apex job object. That means what? Whenever I'm executing that batch class by using that execute batch method, so now it is going to be returning the ID of the batch job which has been allocated by the queue. Based on that ID, we can able to make a query to that async apex job object, and then we can fetch the result of that batch job through programming. But that means there is a tracking mechanism is available through programming. We no need to go to the monitor option. We no need to go to the jobs and apex jobs manually. Through programming itself, we can able to decide what exactly in a batch job, how many batches are available, how many batches processed by Salesforce, how many batches have been failed, what is the status, everything we can track. But when coming to that future methods, whenever I'm placing the future method inside the queue, future method also will be placing inside the queue. For that future method also, queue will be allocating that ID, but the future method won't return that ID to you back. Okay, whatever the ID has been allocated by the queue to the future method, that ID will not be returned to you. That means what? You can't get that ID. Without the ID, can you track the result of that batch job through programming? No. Okay, we can't track that result through programming. So that here as part of the future method will not be returning any ID back to you, so that there's no tracking mechanism of that future method status through programming. Future methods results are also storing inside the async apex job object only here. Because whatever the things are executing and placing inside that apex queue, all those jobs results will be storing inside that async apex job object only. It may be the batch class also, it may be the future method also, it may be the queuable apex class also. All these results will be storing inside that async apex job object. But if it is a batch class, it is returning the ID of the batch. So based on that, we can able to get that result by using that apex programming by making a query to that async apex job object. But if it is a future method won't return any ID to you. This is the major drawback. If you want to cross-check whether the future method has been successfully processed or not, then we have to go to that only option. We have to go to the monitor option, go to the jobs, go to the apex jobs, then only we can track the result. There is no other alternative mechanism. Okay. Now it has been allocated the ID. ID has been allocated by Salesforce. Okay. ID has been allocated by Salesforce, but this ID will not be returning. That is a problem. Okay. Now, so in this case, as part of future method, there is no direct tracking mechanism through program. Okay. Now make a note here. Future method doesn't provide a tracking mechanism. Through program. Okay. So future method doesn't provide the tracking mechanism through program. Now in this case, to monitor the status of the future methods, we have to use jobs and apex jobs. Inside the monitor option, we have to go to the jobs and then apex. It is the only way to monitor the status of your future methods. These are some rules and these are some limitations are available as part of future methods.
Inside the jobs, we create the ID. Inside these apex jobs, it will create the
ID, right? So create the ID. That means what? Inside the job means what? That is the queue. Whenever you are placing one future method inside the queue, to identify that element inside the queue is allocating one ID. That is called as job ID. Okay. But when coming to the database that execute batch method, upon pushing a batch job into the queue, it will be returning the ID to you. but the future method won't return this ID. Okay, there is a major problem when coming to that future method. Whether it has executed or not, there is no confirmation. So we have to go to that monitor option, look into that particular jobs in the Apex tab. From there only we can track this. There is no other alternative mechanism to that. Clear? So this is the concept of future methods in Salesforce. Okay. So when coming to the future methods are used to avoid the exception of mixed DML operation exception. How can we avoid the mixed DML operation exception? Instead of executing that both DML operations are set up and not set up objects within a single transaction, we are going to be dividing them to the executing from one will be in the organization, second one will be in the outside of the organization. So that here we are using the help of future methods. Future methods are always executing outside of the organization by placing inside that Salesforce queue that is called as Apex queue. Inside the Apex queue, the future method will be getting placed whenever Salesforce resources becomes available. Then we'll pick up that future method from the queue to start executing that. That means there is no guarantee when that future method will get executed. It may be executing right away also. It may be after 5 minutes, after 2 minutes, after 1 hour, after 1 day also. Depends upon the availability of that Salesforce resources, the future methods will be getting executed. So upon preparing the future methods, we are having the various rules are available, and then we are having some limitations and drawbacks are also available as part of this future methods. Okay, clear? The mainly when coming to the future method will not be supporting. Okay, future method is not supporting REST object type of parameters. This is the first drawback. If anybody asks about the drawbacks, then you can say now the future method does not support any REST object type of parameters. Second one, chaining process will not be applicable for the future method. Third one, future method does not provide any tracking mechanism through programming. That means it won't return any ID back to you so that you can track the result of that the future method through async Apex job object. There is no such possibility. These are the three major drawbacks are available as part of future methods. To avoid these drawbacks, we have to use an extendable concept called as queuable Apex or queuable interface. We have a feature called as queuable Apex or queuable interface. So whatever the drawbacks are available inside this future methods, whatever the drawbacks are available inside the future method, all those drawbacks will overcome with the help of queuable interface. With the help of queuable interface, we can able to overcome all the drawbacks which we have inside that future methods. Like the first drawback is future method does not support any subject type of parameters, but the queuable interface will support to supply a subject type of parameters also. Not only primitive type subject type of parameters also we can supply to the queuable interface. Second one, future method does not support in the chaining process. That means one future method cannot be invocable from another future method, but when you go to the queuable interface, one queuable class can be invocable from another queuable class also. Okay. The second drawback also will overcome with the help of the queuable interface. Third one, future method is not returning any job ID to you to track the result of the batch job, to the result of the future method. But whenever I'm going to pushing a queuable class into that queue, then whatever the ID has been generated by that Apex queue, that ID will be returning back to you. Then how can we catch that ID? Once the queuable class is ready, we have to push this queuable class into the queue by using a method called as system.enqueueJob. System.enqueueJob. By using the system.enqueueJob method, we have to push that queuable class. We have to specify the queuable class. So whenever I'm going to pushing this queuable class into the queue, Apex queue, it is written in the ID. Okay, it is written in the ID. Based on that ID, we can able to make a query from async Apex job object. Okay, there is a possibility of tracking the result of that queuable class through programming. But if it is a future method results we can't track through programming. The only way is we have to go to the monitor option. In the monitor option, we have to go to the jobs, and then from there we need to go to the Apex jobs. From there we can track the status of the future method it has been executed or not. But if it is a Qubel, no need to go to that monitor option directly. We can track it through programming by making the SQL query to the Qubel async Apex job object by using the job query which has been written by the system that include job method. Okay, now that means what here, when coming to the future method, these are going to be pushing into the queue automatically. But if it is a queuable, we need to push that into the manual process by using system that include job method. Then how to prepare this queuable class? What methods are available inside this queuable interface ready-madely? And then how can we write the classes? And how can we push into the queue? We'll see practically in tomorrow's session. In tomorrow's session, we'll see how can we prepare the multiple the queuable classes. That means all these three drawbacks of future methods I will like to show you in one example by using future queuable interface classes. I will show you all the three mechanisms. How to pass a subject data parameters, how to make the chaining process, how to track the results also we'll see practically in one example with the help of the queuable interfaces. Okay. So now tomorrow we'll see that queuable interface, and then tomorrow we are going to starting one more new feature, that is triggers. Okay. So now with this feature we'll be completing all the 5 asynchronous operations like as batch programming, schedule programming, flex queues are over, future methods are over. Tomorrow we are discussing about the queuable. So with this one asynchronous operation should be completed, and then we'll enter into that triggers concept tomorrow. Okay. Triggers are most important. Initially, we'll be having one complete or 1.5 session with purely theoretical part. You should be aware of so many features inside the trigger. Okay, it's a bit confusing concept also. If you understood the theoretical part, then only triggers can able to be implemented. Okay, in the trigger, every point is important. Okay, don't skip even a single point also before going for the interview. In trigger, every point is important. You'll be having lot of questions, lot of features are there as part of triggers. Like we should be aware of difference between the workflow rule and then process builder and trigger. We should be aware of that. Next one, what exactly the trigger, and then what is the use, what kind of operations you can do with the help of triggers. And then should be aware of trigger events. Salesforce is providing the 7 events for triggers. We'll see what are the 7 events. Okay, what each event indicates. And you will be having the trigger context variables. We have 10 trigger context variables are there. From those 10, you will be having 4 context variables, which are very, very important, which will take some more time to understand. And next one, you will be having the bulkification of trigger, bulkified triggers, and then trigger best practices, and the various ways to create the triggers, and the types of triggers, like as before triggers, after triggers. And then we'll see the trigger implementation part, how to implement the triggers on our object we'll see, and then we'll see the trigger handler factory. What exactly the trigger handler factory we'll see. We'll see the trigger order of executions also, trigger best practices also here. After that, in that one, we'll see the concept of custom settings. Custom settings is a common question in every interview. It's a common question, difference between the custom object, custom label, custom setting. Okay, it's a difference between all these three will be the mandatory question. We should be aware of custom settings. There we'll see 2 types of custom settings again, listed custom settings, hierarchy custom settings. Okay, so that without writing SQL query, we can able to store the data, we can get the data through custom settings. There is a possibility. We'll see that concept also. And then we'll move forward to the concept of test classes and deployments. Okay, these are the few features are left as of now. We'll see that each and every concept one by one. Okay, triggers will be the most important one as part of implementation. Before going for the interview process, triggers, asynchronous operations, Visual Force programming, and then deployments. These 4 features are mandatory. Okay, deployments is a simple topic here. Then we'll see how can we create the sandboxes, what exactly the sandbox types, how to create sandboxes, how to map the connection between the sandboxes, how to deploy the code by using the various options we'll see practically. Okay. So don't miss the triggers concepts, that will be most important feature. Because when you go to the real-time implementations, 80% of the business logic will be there in the triggers one. Okay. That's what. Thank you.